Brynner didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. 20th Century Fox executive offices. 9th floor, corner office with a view of the Hollywood Hills. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, oil paintings of founding executives. The temple of power. And across that desk sat Harold Weinberg, head of casting, 23 years in the business. A man who decided who worked and who starved. A man who held careers in his soft, manicured hands. A man who just made a fatal mistake. Let's be realistic, YUL. You're exotic. That's your brand. We can't cast you as an American. It wouldn't be believable. Brynner sat perfectly still, hands folded in his lap, back straight, face carved from stone. But his eyes, those coal-black eyes, were calculating trajectories, measuring distances, planning violence. Exotic. He repeated the word, tasted it, let it sit in his mouth like poison. Yes, you know, foreign, different. That mysterious quality that makes you perfect for kings, villains, outsiders. But not regular people. Harold smiled, thought he was being helpful, thought he was managing expectations, thought he understood the business. He didn't understand Yul Brynner. In the corner of the office, a young secretary named Rebecca was filing contracts. 24 years old. Vassar graduate, working her way up in a business that treated women as decorations. She'd learned to be invisible, to hear everything and say nothing. But what she was about to witness would stay with her for the rest of her life. Because she was about to watch a refugee destroy an empire. Brynner leaned forward. Slowly, each movement precise, controlled. Like a cobra preparing to strike. Harold, do you know where I'm from? Russia, right? Or somewhere over there. Eastern European, which is perfect for... I'm from Vladivostok. Born during the Russian Revolution. My family fled when I was 4 years old. We had nothing, no country, no papers, no identity. Harold shifted uncomfortably. That's a fascinating backstory. It's not a backstory, it's my life. The temperature in the room dropped. We lived in China for years, then France, then America. Moving, always moving, because we had no home, because the world didn't want refugees, didn't want gypsies, didn't want people who looked exotic. He said the word like it was a curse. My mother cleaned houses. My father disappeared. I slept in train stations, ate from trash cans, learned 6 languages just to survive. Do you know what that teaches you, Harold? Harold didn't answer. It teaches you that the world judges you before you open your mouth. That, different, means less than. That, exotic, is just a polite way of saying, not one of us. Brynner stood, walked to the window, looked out at Hollywood, the dream factory, the place that promised anyone could become anything, if you looked right, if you sounded right, if you were American enough. When I came to this country, I had nothing except discipline, work ethic, and an absolute refusal to let people like you tell me what I could or couldn't be. He turned, faced Harold directly. And now you sit there, in your comfortable chair, in your comfortable office, and tell me I can't play an American. Because I'm exotic. I'm just being honest about the market. You're being a bigot. The word landed like a bomb. Harold's face flushed. Now wait just a minute. Number, you wait. Brynner walked back to the desk, didn't sit, stood over Harold, 5'8", towering over a seated man. Because height isn't about inches, it's about presence. Do you know what exotic means? It means foreign, other, not like us. It's what they called my mother when she applied for jobs. Too exotic. What they called my father when he tried to open a business. Too exotic. What they called me every single day of my childhood. His voice was getting quieter, more dangerous. It's a word used by people who are comfortable, who belong, who never had to prove they deserved to exist, to dismiss people who make them uncomfortable. People who remind them that the world is bigger than their small, frightened corner of it. Yul, I think you're overreacting. Am I? Brynner placed both hands on the desk, leaned in close. Close enough that Harold could see the fury burning behind those controlled features. Let me tell you what's going to happen, Harold. I'm going to leave this office, and I'm going to call every reporter in this town, every columnist, every radio host, and I'm going to tell them exactly what you said to me today. Harold paled. That's not necessary. I'm going to tell them that 20th Century Fox believes that refugees can't play Americans, that people with accents can't be heroes, that anyone who looks different should stay in their lane, play the villain, the exotic foreigner, the other. You're twisting my words. I'm repeating your words. Brynner straightened, adjusted his jacket, every movement calculated, controlled, deadly. And then I'm going to make sure that every actor who's ever been called exotic, every immigrant who's ever been told they don't belong, every person who's ever been judged for looking different, I'm going to make sure they know that this studio, this executive, this industry stands for discrimination. This is extortion. This is justice. Rebecca in her corner had stopped filing, stopped breathing. This wasn't a business meeting anymore. This was a reckoning. Harold was sweating now. You're one of our biggest stars. Then treat me like one, not like a performing monkey, not like an exotic curiosity. Like a professional actor who can play any role he's qualified for. The role requires an American. I am an American. The first time Brynner had raised his voice. The sound filled the office, rattled the windows, made Harold flinch. I've lived in this country for 15 years. I've studied here, worked here, built my career here. I've paid more in taxes than you'll make in your lifetime. But because I was born somewhere else, because I look different, because I don't fit your narrow definition of American, I'm exotic. He leaned down again, eye to eye. Let me tell you something about America, Harold. The real America. Not the one in your imagination. The real one. His voice dropped to a whisper. It's built by people like me. Refugees. Immigrants. The ones who had to fight for everything. Who brought their languages, their traditions, their difference, and made this country stronger because of it. I understand that, but you understand nothing. Brynner walked to the door. Stopped. Hand on the knob. I'm going to give you a choice, Harold. A simple choice. You can apologize. Right now. In front of your secretary. Admit that you are wrong. Admit that exotic is a bullshit excuse for discrimination. And we can forget this conversation ever happened. He turned, those eyes burning. Or I burn this studio to the ground. Professionally. Publicly. Permanently. Harold looked at Rebecca. She was staring at her files, pretending not to hear. But everyone knew she heard everything. This conversation would spread. Already spreading. The second Rebecca left this office, every secretary, every assistant, every powerless person in this building would know what happened here. And Harold knew that Brynner wasn't bluffing, because Yul Brynner never bluffed. Why, Yul? I didn't mean to offend. Yes, you did. You meant exactly what you said. You just didn't expect to be called on it. I was trying to be practical. You were trying to put me in a box, keep me comfortable, keep me in my place, the exotic villain. The foreign king, never the American hero. Harold's hands were shaking. What do you want me to say? The truth. Brynner walked back to the desk, sat down, crossed his legs. Completely calm now. Completely in control. Say that you judged me based on where I was born. Say that you let prejudice masquerade as business sense. Say that you treated me as less than because I'm different. I can't. Then I'm leaving. Brynner stood again, and Harold broke. Wait, please. The word came out strangled. Desperate. Brynner waited. "You're right. I made assumptions. Based on appearance. Based on background. It was wrong." "Say it louder, so Rebecca can hear." Harold looked at Rebecca. She was still pretending not to listen. But her hands had stopped moving. "I made assumptions about Yul Brynner based on his background. It was discriminatory. It was wrong. I apologize." Silence. Brynner studied Harold, measured the sincerity, found it lacking, but found the humiliation sufficient. "Here's what happens next. You're going to call the director of that American role. You're going to recommend me, not as a favor, as the best actor for the job. But the studio heads will do what you tell them, because if they don't, I will make sure that every newspaper in America knows that 20th Century Fox refused to cast a naturalized citizen in an American role because he was born in Russia." The threat hung in the air. Specific, actionable, devastating. And in this current climate, with McCarthy gone but his ghost still haunting this town, with America trying to prove it's better than the Soviets, how do you think that story plays? Harold understood, finally understood. You'd destroy your own career. I'd destroy yours first, and I'd survive. Because I've survived worse than Hollywood politics. I survived revolution, war, displacement, poverty. You think I'm afraid of bad press? Brynner smiled. Not warmly, like a predator showing teeth. I've been called exotic my entire life, called foreign, called other, and every single time I've proven them wrong. I will do it again, and I will make sure everyone knows why I had to. The meeting ended 15 minutes later. Brynner got the role, played an American war veteran. Critics called it his finest dramatic performance. Harold Weinberg retired 2 years later, officially for health reasons, unofficially because his reputation never recovered from a carefully leaked story about his discriminatory casting practices. Rebecca became a producer, one of the first women to hold real power in Hollywood. Known for diverse casting, for giving chances to actors others dismissed as, quote, too different. In her memoir, published in 1989, she wrote, "I watched Yul Brynner dismantle a bigot with nothing but words. No violence, no shouting. Just controlled fury and the absolute certainty that he would not accept being diminished. He taught me that dignity isn't given, it's claimed, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to accept someone else's limited vision of who you can be." But there's one more piece. In 1985, weeks before his death, Brynner gave his final interview. The journalist asked about his proudest moment, not the King and I, not the 10 Commandments, not the Oscars or the fame or the fortune. "The day I made a studio executive apologize for calling me exotic." The journalist was confused. "That doesn't sound very dramatic." Brynner smiled. That same predator smile, older now, weakened by cancer, but still fierce. "It was the most dramatic moment of my life, because it was the moment I stopped accepting other people's definitions of who I could be." He coughed, caught his breath. "They called me exotic because I was different, because I was a refugee, because I didn't fit their narrow imagination of what an American looked like, and for years I accepted those roles. The foreign villain, the mysterious king, the other. But that day I said no, and I meant it, and I won." His voice grew softer. "Every kid who's ever been called different, every immigrant who's been told they don't belong, every person who's been put in a box because of where they're from or what they look like, I hope they remember this." He looked directly at the camera. "You are not exotic. You are not foreign. You are not other. You are exactly as American, as human, as worthy as anyone else. And anyone who says different is just afraid of a world bigger than their imagination." One last pause. Don't let them make you small. Don't let them put you in a box. And when they try, and they will try, you look them in the eye and you say no, firmly, finally, forever. This story reminds us that exotic is just fear wearing a polite mask. Discrimination doesn't always shout. Sometimes it sits behind a desk and smiles. And the most powerful weapon against prejudice isn't violence. It's the refusal to accept it. Yul Brynner was called exotic his entire life. He wore it as armor, as a challenge, as proof that different doesn't mean less. And when someone tried to use it to limit him, he burned their world down with nothing but words and certainty. That's not exotic, that's power. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe. Because behind every success story, there's a moment when someone said no to being diminished. And that moment changes everything.